Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
All right. You know, I love Russell because, you know, he doesn't get it. And a lot of addicts that go undiagnosed, that haven't gotten help, they don't get it either. There's a part of them that thinks that they are the way they are and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just boys being boys or just sexuality playing itself out. There are a lot of people who really struggle with not liking what they're doing, but the compulsion, the desire, the urges and the cravings are so strong that even though there's a part of them that knows that it's absolutely wrong, they negate that to continue the behavior. That's one of the criteria for sex addiction. And so I get that Russell doesn't know what he doesn't know. Now, you may be going, who's Russell? Well, Russell's a trucker who says, you know, I have traveled all 50 states and you know, I know what I want. And I hope it's not a problem because I go after it. Well, if you're somebody who's indulging in sexually acting out and you're keeping it a secret and you either feel bad about it yourself individually or you have a family, a wife, a husband, and you're keeping that secret from them, that's a problem. What that does is it keeps you in isolation. And then that feeds the addiction. And so it becomes an auto-exacerbating situation. Now, you've heard me say it before, because I've really been working with my group on this. You know, there are these 30 recovery tasks that are not linear, but they are important, and Patrick Carnes came up with them. And they're amazing stuff. It's from his Recovery Zone book, The Internal Tasks. The first task is to break through denial. You know, I was working with a couple the other day, and what I knew was that he knew how to spin the situation to make his wife look crazy. And she was irrationally reactive. But that oftentimes is part of trauma. And so breaking through the denial means we got to help the addict understand that they are in a state of denial, that they're minimizing, they're rationalizing, they're justifying their behavior to make it look less than destructive, less than impactful, less than disrespectful. And when we break through that denial, the next step is to help him or her understand the addiction, to understand that this is not a problem of moral failure, although it certainly looks like it. But in reality, what it is a brain science problem where the addict has established behaviors that are now providing neurocircuitry that needs a charge, that needs a fix. It is exactly like cocaine. And so if we help the addict, male or female, understand addiction, they're more likely to achieve task number 3, which is to surrender to it, to say to oneself, and in actuality, I have lots of addicts that go, I hate that word, surrender. But what it really means is accept. Accept that they've got this issue and they need to do something about it. And when they surrender, they are able to do something about it. Now, when they do something about it, they're able to limit the damage that they're causing to themselves, to their body, to their mind, to their families, to their work, to their community. You name it, they're able to limit the damage. And then they really establish task number 5, good sobriety, and physical integrity, task number 6. And they do that by creating a culture of support. That may be a 12-step program. That may be Every Man's Battle. That may be Recovery Nation, an online group. That may be Celebrate Recovery. I don't know how you're going to get there, but what I do know is that it's most important to seek a group that specifically deals with sex addiction. My own personal bias, even though I love Celebrate Recovery, is that if you can't talk openly about your sexual addiction, you stay in the shadows. And, that's what Patrick Carnes talked about, staying in the shadows. That's why he named the book Out of the Shadows. So those are the first 7 recovery tasks. And I really want you, if you're listening to this show and you suspect you've got a problem, to go to my website and take the test. That's sexhelpwithcarolthecoach.com or sexhelp.com and take the test and see if it indicates that you've got a problem. And if you do, then you look for a therapist in your area. That's the best thing you can do to get the help you need. Now, you know me. I work with individuals and help them with their sobriety, whether it be male or female, young or old. And if they're in a relationship, if they have an active family, we work on the relationship together. And I am so super excited, so jazzed to tell you that on Wednesday, my book is coming out. So if you could, go to Amazon and buy the book. And it is a book for addicts who want to help their partner heal. It's called Help, Her, Heal. Now, you know me, guys. I don't ever advertise for myself. That's not what this show is about. But I am jazzed about this because it's an empathy workbook for sex addicts to help their partners heal. And it goes through the steps of what one can do to make restitution, to make repairs in a fractured relationship, to build trust while working on oneself. So I know this book is about male sex addicts to help their wives heal, but I hope if you're gay or if you're a female sex addict that you'll be able to understand that this book can help your partner too. Well, if you're a female sex addict or a gay sex addict, this will work for you. You just got to change the pronouns. And I'm just sorry that I couldn't make it more gender neutral. I've thought about and may still change these books to being gender neutral. But in the meantime, I hope you all go out to Amazon and do that. Just put my name in, Carol Jurgensen Sheets. That's Jurgensen, Sheets, with co-author Alan J. Katz. He wrote about 8 submissions that are just fabulous. And you've got to use this workbook because it helps her heal by developing empathy skills and reflective listening and mirroring and understanding the brain science behind her trauma. And it gets you to look at the timelines, the dual timelines of your own addiction and your relationship and why it feels like such a double betrayal. Again, that is help.her.heal, and it comes out this Wednesday. Amazon, because when you go to Amazon, you can go to Sanos Press, Sanos Press. However, what I know to be true is that Amazon is kind of the score of how well a book does. So, of course, I'd like this book to do well. But you know what? I really don't care. I don't care. I hope you know that. All I want is for this book to help you. And that's why we've got help.her.heal. And it's also why I really wanted to have Brian and Jennifer on. First and foremost, they're a recovering couple. And they're going to share their experience, their strength and hope, and how they got to couples recovery. They have a common vision that hope is within reach, that healing from sexual addiction is possible, and that marriages can survive and flourish in recovery from sexual addiction. Now, I know if you're in the midst of a relationship, you may say, oh my gosh, how does that happen? But I promise you it can, because you've heard me say it before. When you do your recovery and when you help your partner heal, wow, you become incredibly resilient and healthy, practicing the right relational skills, and you just make it your own, and that is what is so important, to make it your own. Now, Brian is a licensed professional counselor. He's a CSAT through ITAP, just like myself. He's also a certified sex offender treatment provider. And he, like so many of us, a.k.a. me too, is working on training and being certified in the EMDR, which is that eye movement desensitization reprocessing that so many of us do for trauma, for the sex addict, and trauma for the partner. And so it can be very, very helpful. And they're going to talk about the principles that they live by and some tips that will help you to strengthen your relationship. Even if you're single, I think you'll really enjoy this show, because there will be a time that you will find somebody that you want to invest in. And, this stuff can be hard initially. There's so much shame that goes with it. The addict carries the shame while the partner carries the pain. That's my slogan, even though I don't really any longer believe that truly, but I do believe it's partially true. And I just really know for a fact that we can help couples, and couples can recover, and they can be stronger. I said it on another show the other day. I said, just in the same way as when you break a bone. You know, I got to tell you, I have probably broken, in my adulthood, 7 or 8 bones. I get out and work out every single day, but I got to tell you, I broke my back going to a fitness trainer. I broke one shoulder camping with kids at a residential treatment center. I broke the other clavicle. I was tubing. What else did I do? Oh, I was roller skating, and I broke my arm. I was roller blading, and I broke my wrist. And the beautiful thing about these breaks is that it got me to slow down. Yeah, right. Oh, and did I say, yeah, I said I broke my back. But the other thing is, when a bone heals, it's stronger. That part that has been ruptured, that has been fractured, that has been broken is actually stronger. And so I got to tell you, when that happens, there's nothing better than being able to, make a bone stronger so that if I were going to fall again, hey, that area wouldn't break because of all the scar tissue, because of the strengthening of the tissue. And so that's what we really believe. Brian, Jennifer, and myself believe that if you've gone through this, you can be the best person ever, way better than you were before the addiction, and twice or 3 times as strong because the addiction has taught you recovery skills. And that's what I want you to know. So I'm really excited to have Brian and Jennifer on the show. Welcome, guys, to Sex Help with Carol the Coach.
Hi, Carol.
Hi there.
It's very nice to finally talk with you in person.
Absolutely. We're fellow CSATs, and we know how important it is for couples and sex addicts to get the right kind of help. Huh, Brian?
Uh-huh. Yes, very much so.
Hi, Carol. I'm grateful to be along for the ride tonight.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Obviously, you're Brian's wife, and you currently work within a large school division, and you have really made it your mission to help couples with recovery skills and tips that they need. And so we so appreciate that from you because really, in some ways, you were collateral damage. I mean, you were just a byproduct of the pain that this sexual addiction caused. So thank you so much for being on the show. I know you're really a member of Al-Anon. Yeah. You've been a member for 30 years. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah, tell us about that. Well, tell us about your spouse's group.
Sure. Well, I have just taken so much from Al-Anon over the years. It's just been truly a lifesaver for me. I consider myself an adult child, and I have a family member who is deeply impacted by addiction. And I have also have an ex-husband who was deeply impacted by substance abuse and addiction. And so long before I ever met Brian, I was deeply involved with Al-Anon and just really learned the blessings of the 12-step program and was deeply, deeply committed to that path. To the degree that when I met Brian and we had he disclosed that he was a sex addict in recovery, it's not that I didn't blink an eye. I blinked a little bit, but I knew that he was committed to recovery, and from my own experience with Al-Anon, I knew that I knew the faith, the hope, and the healing that was available, and the grace that comes when you commit to recovery, and therefore was willing to take a leap with him and to go on this ride with him. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And
so and
Brian,
I can
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I can actually say I'm one of those people who can actually say that I am grateful that addiction has come into our lives, because we together have experienced the grace that comes through the program. And just as you were saying earlier, there are things that I've learned and experiences that we've come through together that we never would have encountered had we not gone through recovery as a couple and been able to be with other couples in recovery. And I know that the bonds and connection that we have now is something that is not possible. I can't imagine how it would be possible without the grace that we experienced through recovery.
Well, and that's a great lead-in, Jennifer, in terms of, Brian, tell us a little bit about your addiction. How did you know it was not just part of being a guy? How did you know it was an addiction?
Well, the first realization that I had addictive behavior really dates back to the early 90s. Part of my story, Carol, is at one time I was a Roman Catholic priest in a diocese on the eastern seaboard, and realized an issue with sometimes looking at images, and then in my final assignment as a priest, I got really depressed. So I went through a program, and that's when I first really embraced the 12 steps. I started going to, at that time, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous meetings, and then eventually settled on Sexaholics Anonymous, which I, through the grace of God, have sustained sobriety. So I realized that at a relatively young age, maybe in my early to mid-30s, that I had an issue with this. And like many addicts, struggled with looking at pornography on the Internet. This was after I discerned to leave the priesthood. That was an issue for me a long time ago.
Wow. So, oftentimes there are lots of reasons to feel that shame and pain. And in some ways you felt the shame twofold, because you knew you were deceiving the people that you love, but to be a priest and to have to uphold something that you absolutely couldn't uphold. So how did you break through that denial? I was talking with my listening audience about that is the first recovery task that Patrick Carnes teaches us, is to help clients break through denial. So how did that happen for you?
Well, Carol, it's interesting. In a sense, I knew what I was doing was a problem for me. I knew that there was an issue. My denial was essentially not using the tools not using the tools to stay stopped. As we know, working with many people in recovery, particularly men, it's not so much stopping; it's staying stopped. So I would have some sobriety, but then through anxiety, frustration, and stress would just return to my pattern. So my denial really, Carol, was not recognizing that I needed to completely submit myself to a program of recovery. And when I did that, and the catalyst for that was my relationship with Jennifer, that's what really enabled me to have sustained sobriety.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that relationship helped you to really make the decision that this was something you needed to do for yourself and for Jennifer.
Yeah, and this was up to about the time the time that we met each other. And by the way, today is an anniversary for us, in that it was 14 years ago. This day we met each other. We have a very funny story that maybe we could squeeze in as far as how that first date came about. But it occurred on this day back in 2005 in the Central Virginia area where we reside. But yeah, the catalyst.
Okay, don't squeeze it in. I want you to tell us right now. What's the funny story?
Well, I'll let Jennifer.
Well, it was really simply. It was just we used an online dating app, and in our maturity, it seemed kind of absurd. But I picked him online because I saw where he had gone to college, and I thought, at least he'll know how to think, and maybe we'll have some good conversations. And I didn't necessarily think he'd be a good date, but I thought he'd be a good friend. And so we met each other for breakfast because I thought that would be good and safe. And sure enough, it was more than safe. It was a good match for us.
Well, I can tell, Brian, that Jennifer is very gracious, and obviously she's on the other side of betrayal. I mean, she's in full-fledged recovery and couples recovery. So continue. Tell us a little bit about what motivated you to really get clean. Tell us how you did that. And then how did you take your life to the next level and decide you wanted to help other addicts and become a CSAT?
Well, what I said a few moments ago was the essence of how I got clean, is that it was the reality of day-to-day living with someone literally sleeping in the same bed that enabled me to have accountability, because in my family of origin, I was the only boy, so I had my own room growing up, and then I went into the seminary at a young age, and then became a priest at the age of 27. So I had been literally living by myself for the first half of my life, that's just, priests, we make a celibate commitment. We live by ourselves, and then we go ahead with what we do, et cetera, et cetera. And but that at the same time, that isolation at times was, in a sense, the ground spring, so to speak, of my addictive behavior. So again, literally, then living with Jennifer, we got married, and then the accountability that was built into that day to day. And for me, Carol, it's the last thing. Jennifer keeps reaching when she wants to speak here. But I've always been a momentum person, Carol. If I do something for X number of days, X number of weeks, X number of months, and now X number of years, that's what really helps me to grow in my recovery. And, literally the brain neurons have changed in my head, as you've spoken about many times. What's now wired together is now choosing recovery on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, and one other question, because our listening audience may inquire. Now, you were a priest, or you were in school to become a priest?
I was a priest. Yes, I was a priest for a number of years.
But
He
was a priest,
and then he left because he wanted to have an opportunity to marry, and it was years after that, 10 years after he left the priesthood, that he and I met each other.
Okay, yes, because I wondered if you were the reason that he left the priesthood, but not at all.
No, not at all. Not even close. But
I left, and 9 years later I met Jennifer.
Yeah. So one thing I want to be really clear about is that it was not immediately easy for us. We, when we first got together, there were a lot of struggles, and Brian there was some relapse in our early relationship, and Boy, I got to tell you, it was really rough. The first 4 or 5 years were really, really rough for us. And in fact, we even separated for a time. We both had just a lot of codependent issues that we had to work through, and it was really, really rocky and rough. And we ended up going out to the Meadows. We went out for an intensive couples therapy week out at the Meadows in Arizona, and really got some serious therapy, couples therapy, and in recovery, and using the language of recovery and using the principles of Pia Melody's work. And that really helped us to break through. It helped us to really understand where the other was coming from, and really see the other's wounds and the other's addictions and codependencies, and really helped us to see with compassion what was going on. And I got to say, since we did that intensive work with the help of a good therapist, and then back home with the help of a good CSAT and couples therapist, things have been so much better, and our recovery has been so much better. And in fact, one of the things that we walked away with, and this is one of our tips, is just a very clear understanding that there's his side of the street with his recovery, there's my side of the street with my recovery, and then there's the couples portion of the street with the things that we need to attend to together. And just being really clear of when things come up, which lane those eruptions might be in. Like if it's on his side of the street, I've got to let him take care of it and trust his program and his sponsor and his recovery. And likewise, when it's something on my side, he's got to trust my recovery and my program and my accountability partner. And when it's something that we need to attend to together, then we've got to play fair and we've got to really figure it out together.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I am an APSAT trained therapist, and so one of the things that we know at APSAT is that this sex addiction affects the person individually, and of course it affects the relationship. And so in some ways they're fused. I mean, you have a right, this is our school of thought, you have a right to understand about his recovery and know what he's doing. You don't have a right to dictate what he needs to be doing. So will you share with our listening audience a little bit more about those three sides of the street? What does that mean? His side, your side, and the couples. Okay.
Sure. So if, it's real easy as a wife to see what he's doing and say, oh, you need to do A, B, or C. But if it's something that's related to his addiction and his recovery in his addiction, then all I need to say is, when's the last time you spoke to your sponsor? Or, just that little nudge of, I've noticed something. And, or even these days, I don't even have to say it because we have our daily check-ins, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in the course of doing our check-ins with each other, in our integrity and in our honesty with each other, those things come out. And I absolutely trust the 12-step program, and I absolutely trust him to work it and know that he knows the consequences when he doesn't work his program. And now it's gotten to the point where it affects way too much. The cost of him not working his program would be way too high. The stakes are so high now that I can't even imagine us going back. That's just where things have gotten. And I know it's hard for him, too, to see me struggling with my own codependent behaviors or my own issues. And he's not going to play therapist for me. He's not going to jump on my side of the street. He may ask if I want to hear some feedback, and he may give me some feedback. And, I need to take it to my own therapist or to my own program or to my own accountability partner.
So, Carol, to then say about, the coupleship, the third rail, so to speak, it's what we've covered in our tips that we do a check-in in the morning. So we do physically I feel, emotionally I feel. And then Jennifer asked me a while ago, in the aftermath of a relapse a number of years ago, to say whether I'm sober. So I say I'm sober and recovering every morning. That's a reassurance on her part, and plus it holds me accountable. And then we'll talk about just what's happening in our day. And then at night we do a gratitude list, and we decided to do that once we got back together in 2012 after we spent that time at the Meadows. We moved from one part of Virginia to another, and what we decided to do, and we didn't put this in our tip, and I just thought of this, is we decided not to have a TV in our room. So it doesn't mean we still, we might not listen to things at night and all that, but we decided that to have a TV, not to have a TV in our room, and that's been helpful as far as creating a sense of quiet and peacefulness when we particularly go to bed. So those are the her side of the street, my side of the street, and what we do together. And we both come out of experiences where we've both done a lot of individual work. We know each other's stuff. Now that I'm a licensed therapist and all that, I'm very conscious of not trying to play Jennifer's therapist. She reminds me of that very clearly. So that's kind of fun. So.
Got it. I really agree with that, not having a TV in the bedroom, because obviously you do need time to wind down, but you also may use the bedroom to really discuss or feel intimacy. And it sounds like your check-in in the morning and in the evening really contributes to that intimacy and that safety, and not having a TV in your bedroom keeps you from being distracted.
Yeah. And we both have right now are just briefly dealing with some family issues regarding health, and then where I work, someone's really sick there too. So we spent some time talking about that. So please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so one more time, share what your morning check-in is like, and then what your evening check-in is like.
Sure. So our morning check-in is very simply, in the morning, we'll take turns and we'll say, well, emotionally, I feel this way, and physically, I feel this way. And it just helps to talk about what we're feeling emotionally, because we both have a little bit of, morning nerves and what am I going to deal with at work? And rather than being like cycling through it in our mind and sort of isolating from each other and maybe looking for ways to avoid our feelings, we just say what our feelings are and make a connection with each other. And then we follow upon that with the 7-step prayer, which is from the 12-step tradition. And we've written that down and I've shared that with you. And then we also follow it with some personal prayers from our own faith tradition. We may pray for family members or for our day or for people who have asked us to pray for them along the way. So that's our morning check-in, and it really is. It's a time to sort of jump the track of, sometimes I want to just jump on a gerbil wheel first thing in the morning, and or at least that's what my habit is. But when we check in with each other, we make that connection, and that's so helpful for both of us to make that intimate connection with each other, and then also to connect with our faith and our higher power. And then in the evening, our just sharing what we're grateful for, and again following upon that with a 7-step prayer from the 12-step tradition has just been so very calming for both of us. And also it's a chance to connect again. Because, I mean, goodness sakes, addiction is all about that lack of authentic connection. And when we authentically connect with each other in the morning and at night, it just builds a richness into our relationship.
So we've been doing that, Carol, for about 7 years now, and it's just so much a part of our day-to-day relationship. And even when one or the other happens to not be there, for example, Jennifer's going to be away later this summer on a training, so she'll be gone for 10 days. But we still will talk to each other and just do the same thing in the morning and then before we go to bed at night.
Okay, and so let our listening audience know. Repeat from the AA Big Book, the 7th Step Prayer.
Sure. My Creator,
I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. And then in the course of that with each other, we also will name our character defects with each other. And it's just a way of our being authentic to each other and transparent to each other.
Oh, absolutely. And so each one of you, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our listening audience one character defect that shows up that you admit to the other person. We all have them.
Sure. For me, it's fear. And my fear is just a runaway train. And if I don't name it and call it out and name it every chance I get, then it runs away, and that fear can become suspicion and then turn to anger and frustration and wear all kinds of different clothes. But at the base of it, it is always fear.
For me, Carol, I've named this consistently for a number of years. It's perfectionism. I expect myself to always get it right and or should have known better. And another one for me periodically is resentment. So I usually name who or what I'm resentful about or towards whom.
Yeah, I'm sure our listening audience can really relate to those two very common character defects. I mean, I feel like fear rules us all, and that's something that, again, through your 12-step work and your openness and honesty, authenticity, and transparency, each other knows what's going on deep inside of you, and that really is intimacy, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It sure is.
Well, and I'm a believer that, you were talking, Brian, about resentment and any type of anger, if brought out in the open and handled appropriately, well, that kind of conflict actually breeds intimacy. It may not feel good at first to hear about what it might entail, but when you bring it out and share it and oftentimes negotiate and compromise around it, you feel closer to the other person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so you would advise our listening audience, you're just sharing what's worked for you, your own hope, strength, and recovery. You believe that the Serenity Prayer and the 7th Step Prayer have really helped to solidify and bond the two of you.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, we learned a while ago, Carol, even before we got more deeply into recovery, to use the Serenity Prayer prior to any significant discussion, and that includes, and I say this somewhat humorously, but discussing about finances.
Yeah, anytime that we know that we're likely to feel triggered, or I particularly have a history of being triggered about money, And so we just have to surrender and just, put ourselves in that frame of mind that, okay, we're entering into work that could be a minefield here. And just know that, okay, Brian knows that this is something that triggers me. And we've come to a point in our relationship where we can recognize when one or the other is triggered by something. And when we see that that's happening and our conversation is starting to escalate into an argument, one or the other of us will just say, hey, you know what, we're feeling triggered right now. And it's not you're triggered or it's not to be accusing, but we're triggered right now. And so let's just table this conversation until we can calm down. And using that language, the we, just really helps to, because if Brian would say, oh, I see you're triggered, my response is, what do you mean? And get out of my business and don't play therapist, because of course I'm triggered. But if he just says we're triggered right now, or if I say we're triggered right now, it just gives us a chance to calm down and realize, oh, okay, we've just stepped into a minefield, and we have to tread lightly. And before we can then continue that conversation, we need to go into the serenity prayer, trusting that our higher power and the tools that we've learned in recovery are going to have to assist us to get through that negotiation or that conversation.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it is so important for couples to understand how to work with those triggers, because obviously triggers are something that you may know can occur. I mean, obviously, when there's finances that are going to be discussed, one could assume that that's going to be a tough time for you and may engage in a trigger. But then there are times that triggers occur for no known reason. And when your partner can really help you with the trigger, it makes a world of difference. So how do the two of you do that? How do you help each other?
Well, that's a really, really good question, Carol, because my history is that my father was an adult child of an alcoholic, and so he was often easily triggered, and I grew up either trying to avoid him when he was like that, or I'd react angrily to that and just not have much acceptance from that. And so when that has occurred, sometimes with Jennifer, what I've learned to do is to not invalidate how she's feeling at that moment. And that takes a lot of work for me to do that. But that's something that's that split second that we often talk about, where it's the amygdala that's activated, but then the prefrontal cortex jumps in and says, no, Jennifer's triggered, and what she's really happening here, she's afraid of something, or she's stressed about something, she's mad about something, really has nothing to do with me. And if I just allow her to be that way, I'm getting better at that. I'm working on that. And I think it's really, really helped a lot in our relationship, because as you just said a moment ago, triggers happen out of the blue sometimes, or randomly in a relationship.
And very often when those triggers come up seemingly out of nowhere, it's like, oh, that's a new one, or gosh, I hadn't seen that one before, then that's a time when I really need to attend to my side of the street, or Brian needs to attend to his side of the street, and he'll take it into his own therapy with his therapist, or I'll take it into my therapist if it's my issue. And, and again, it's part of that daily accountability and transparency. This has come up. This is from something that happened in my past, or something that I need to attend to, and I'm going to attend to it, and so that we can not keep bumping into that landmine again. And all of life and recovery and healing, we're just getting the different layers of our onion healed. And as we go deeper and deeper and deeper, we run into other things and other issues that never seemed to bug us before, but all of a sudden, boom, there they are. And that's just part of the beauty of life. That's just the way it is.
Well, 100%. And you two have really kind of mastered some major principles that you believe are essential in helping couples to heal. So obviously, tip number 2 was to stay on your side of the street, that their addict has a side, the partner has a side, and the couple has a side. And so you get to navigate and negotiate what's really going on. Do you ever disagree about that? Which side of the street it really is?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Not all the time.
No, not all the time. But of course we do. I mean, and there are times when, one or the other is just completely irrational and enraged, because that's just what happens. But we also have come to understand that if the other is of course, people are going to act out of their triggers or out of their woundedness, but we fundamentally know that the other loves and accepts us. I know that Brian loves me, and I know that he would not, in his whole self, ever do anything to hurt me. And I trust that. And I know that if he's lashing out, that's his woundedness that's lashing out at me. I may not know it in the moment, and I may be really angry in the moment. But when I have a few moments to cool down, I get it. And so does he.
Yeah, and I think, Carol, that's been a major shift in our relationship for a number of years now. So we both know that we have each other's back, and that we neither one of us mean any harm to the other, and so that's a really, really key change. And that just takes time for couples to see that. In my own work, as I work with couples dealing with this addiction and or just in general, sometimes couples just don't. It just takes time for them to see that. And as you know, couples might not ever see that, and they're still reacting out of their woundedness there.
Absolutely. And I want to get to tip number 4, because I feel like this is something I learned, believe it or not, from John Gray, the Venus and Mars guy.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is, when there's a difficult conversation, oftentimes if you write it out, you externalize that and you get your feelings and thoughts all organized, and it gives the other person a safe place and some safe time to digest it and decide what is the next step. So you two don't conduct difficult conversations unless it's email or by text.
Well, so what we'll do is, if it's something that's really difficult that I just am not sure how to approach it, or maybe it's something I really want him to think about, I may broach it first by email and just say, let's have a conversation, and here are some of my thoughts. But that'll give us a chance first for me to, as you say, objectify it, put it into writing, be very clear about where I'm coming from, and be very thoughtful about my language. It gives him a chance from a distance to sort of receive it. But then we will not have we will not go back and forth by email. We'll then have the conversation in person. So we'll approach it first by email if it's going to be something that might be difficult or prickly. And then we'll have the conversation in person.
It gives each other kind of a heads up that this is something that you want to discuss. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. And so that's a tip that you give. And then tip number 5, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, that's just the whole idea that I know that he does not wish me harm, and he knows that I do not wish him harm. And we, not only do we have that faith in each other and that understanding and that fundamental love for each other, but we both have faith in the 12-step program. So many people have gone through recovery before us, and our working the program is really on the shoulders of those people who've gone before us. And we have a complete understanding of how our higher power is at play in our relationship. And our faith comes into this. We could not have this relationship if we didn't have a faith in our higher power. It just wouldn't exist. Our faith is such an important part of this. Plus, this idea of a conscious relationship where we intend to really be authentic with each other in a loving way. It's just how we want to be in a couple. And that's just one of our fundamental principles and beliefs.
And at the same time, Carol, that's come through very, very difficult, painful work, persevering with one another, choosing not to give up when we were both very frustrated with each other a number of years ago, and then trusting our therapist, who we had at the time is now a retired CSAT, just saying basically it does get better. And I think that's been just over a period of time. And I think the other piece of it is we have been each other's biggest cheerleader. We have both realized career goals that we never thought were possible. It's amazing. I mean, Jennifer obtained a doctorate in education. I now have my CSAT, and they're just incredible achievements, but it's based on grounded in the healing that we've done individually, but I think how we really have helped each other heal. I know my life is totally different from my years when I was struggling with my addictive behavior.
It really is the fruits and the promises of the 12 steps. I mean, this is absolutely the promises. I remember when I would sit in S-Anon meetings or in Al-Anon meetings, and I would listen to the promises, and I would think, oh my gosh, they just seem so unattainable, but they really are. I mean, it really does work if you work it. The program really does work, and recovery really does happen. And it was so important to me in the early days. I just wanted to be a couple that could recover together. I didn't want to become a bitter person and go through another divorce. And it really is possible. It really works.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your hope, strength, and recovery, because there are so many couples that this process is so difficult, and yet you're a couple that gives them that kind of strength. How can they get a hold of you if they need to?
Well, Carol, I'm now a CSAT, and I work at a place in the town we live in, Fredericksburg. And best way to get a hold of me is by my email. It's Vaughn, that's VAUGHAN.PAX@gmail.com. And then my phone number is 540-212-1480. Now that would be in my role as a LPC and a CSAT.
Thank you, Brian. We've got about 30 seconds, and so I so appreciate both of you coming on the show, talking about what you do, and I'm sure people will contact you because you're an amazing couple. Yeah. Keep up the good work.
And, Carol, you do the same, please.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Okay.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Have a great night.
Okay, you too. Bye, guys. Okay, so there's a couple that's making it work. And for any of you, whether you're single or in a coupleship, there's only got to be one of you at all times. So fearlessly have the courage to be yourself. And your life to the next level. I'll talk to you soon with Sex Help with Carol the Coach.